How can you best care for yourself and others? Is there something new and unique that wants to come through around that? What aspects of yourself, others, a project, a business are needing some nurturing? What risks are you willing to take to find purpose in life? What to struggle for, dependency, and independence. These are all pressures, qualities, and questions that this cycle of the Human Design Weather for April 21st to 27th, 2026 bring. Hello, and welcome to the Human Design Weather or Not podcast with me, Margot Fraser. Well, we definitely saw those themes of chaos and reordering playing out in the world last cycle. I had some of that in my own life as well. This cycle, we have Earth Day on the 22nd. So happy Earth Day. And in the frequencies of caring, it will be an excellent day to do something to care for the earth, which in turn can be very much caring for yourself. We continue with our combination, our next combination of the sun in a sacral gate and the earth in a splenic gate. This cycle begins April 21st at 8:49 p.m., going until the 27th at 3:25 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. Universal time coordinates, this is starting April 22nd at 2:49 a.m., going until the 27th at 9:25 p.m. Remember to convert that to your own time zone so you know when it starts and ends for you. We always start with the Sun Earth activations because that's 70% of the conditioning field. This cycle, the Sun has moved into gate 27, the trait of caring and nourishment in the Sacral Center. The Sacral Center is that motor that generates life force energy and is meant to be used towards work that is really satisfying for you. This trait is part of a minor tribal circuitry called the defense circuitry that supports survival of the species. One part of the defense circuitry is the genetic pressure to make more of us. That is the 59 to the 6, the channel of mating and intimacy. And the other is, well, we had them, now we need to take care of them. And this gate 27 is part of caring for those offspring. In the larger sense, though, it can be caring for your community, your business, any projects that you have, and so on. We had its electromagnetic. Gate 50, the tribal trait of laws and values in the splenic center in the Earth's position last cycle. So now we're on the other side of that. Gate 27 brings the energy to care for yourself and to care for others. That's the pressure that's going to be here for this cycle. What are you doing to care for yourself and to care for others? Its keynote says the enhancement of the quality and the substance of all activities through caring. So you may find in this cycle, you're more likely to be drawn into caring and potentially being cared for. This trait in the field can support learning how to care for yourself in a way that's not necessarily at the expense of anyone else. It's a great time to contemplate how you can enhance the quality of your own life. You might also learn about caring for others in a different way. And Gate 50, that tribal trait of values and laws that we had last cycle, might have also brought forward some wisdom around maybe where you've been taking too much or too little responsibility for caring. This is a trait where you can learn the difference and discern between quality caring versus smothering or neglecting, and dependency versus fostering that independence. So it can be a really great cycle for nurturing yourself and taking a little time for self-care. In the polarity, there can be not taking responsibility for your own caring and wanting someone else to take that on, or seeing how someone else is caring for themselves and wanting that, but then not taking any steps towards making that happen for yourself. Have you been giving so much to others that you don't have anything left to give to yourself? Are you depleted? Something else to contemplate this cycle. Is there a person, a project, an aspect of yourself that could really use some attention and caring? Perhaps it's time to act on any awarenesses that have come in around that, if it's correct for you. The trait of caring is being grounded in the Earth's position. Gate 28, the trait of the game player. It's also called the preponderance of the great. We also refer to this trait as the risk taker. It's in the splenic center, our most primal awareness center that operates in the now and is concerned with your survival, health, and well being. It's part of the individual circuitry that operates in a pulse of acoustic knowing and can bring through something mutative, something new that potentially could be very empowering. This trait's about taking risks towards finding purpose in life, towards finding out whether life is really of value. Is there something beyond just survival? It's part of the channel of struggle. It can be a struggle to find purpose and value in life. Here it brings an acoustic knowing in the now of whether there's something in the moment that you should struggle for or not. It can support you to know what risks to take to find purpose and value. The potential awareness here is through listening. And that listening, that spontaneous acoustic knowing potentially could come in. We never know with the individual traits. The pulse has its own timing that we have no control over. Its keynote says the transitoriness of power and influence. Life is always in flux. Who or what has the power and influence changes over time. Every trait in the splenic center has a primal fear. And here it's the fear of death and the fear of not finding purpose in life or finding that life is not of value. That's a very powerful and primal drive for us to evolve. This isn't blind risk taking, by the way. This is really rooted in investigating, getting all the details. That's the preponderance of the great. It's calculated risk taking. There's the potential opportunity to gain that awareness as an acoustic knowing in the now of what calculated risks for you as an individual to take to move forward on your purpose path, to find value in life. What's really worth fighting for? You may gain an awareness that something you've been struggling for out of the mind's perspective is actually not aligned for you and not worth your energy. In getting into the detail, you might find out that a risk that you've been contemplating is not actually going to be beneficial for you. Remember that this operates in the present. So if you're consumed with anxiety for the future or you're caught up in the past, you might actually miss that little pulse of knowing that comes through. Also, watch for your not self mind, your shadow mind getting overwhelmed by that fear that you're not going to find purpose and value in life. And out of that, taking yourself out of a risk that you know is correct for you, or not doing your investigation and taking those blind risks. With any individual trait, there's the potential for it to pulse into melancholy. With this trait, it's the melancholy that I'm never going to find purpose and, life has no value. If that happens, do your best to channel it into your creative endeavors. And listening to music that you're in the mood for can be very helpful as well. The individual traits are very acoustic. I should mention too that gate 28 is one of two traits, the other being it's electromagnetic, gate 38, the trait of the fighter that can pull those who have integration, that integration channel, out of their self-absorption. Integration's all about being self-absorbed in what you love and really kind of blocking everyone else out. So it can pull integration out of the self-absorption and into caring for you. When we look at these two traits together, you may find there's an emphasis on taking calculated risks that move you towards greater caring, or the polarity, less caring for yourself. You could become aware of ways that are really unique to you in the way that you care. You could find yourself struggling to know how to best care for yourself or for others. Or you could take risks that create a necessity to care for yourself or that garner support from others and call in their caring for you. Just different ways that things could play out there. All right, let's look at our channels now. A reminder that when the transit field creates a channel, everyone that doesn't already have it in their chart is receiving activation of the related traits and qualities. So it has a big impact worldwide. We've got our long-term channel that's been with us since December 22nd and will be here until May 13th. So it's a long one. We have the south and north nodes of the moon that are creating the channel of community, a design of a part seeking a whole. The nodes represent our direction, our environment, and what we see in the world. That north node sitting in gate 37, the trait of friendship and family in the emotional center, the solar plexus center, and the south node sitting in gate 40, the trait of deliverance and aloneness in the ego center, the heart center that generates that willpower. Really interesting to contemplate that all the children being born in this period from December 22nd to May 13th are carrying this channel. They're all emotional beings. They all have this willpower and this channel of community. This is tribal with that theme of mutual support. So we're going to want to be supported. That's what the frequency is bringing, the pressure that it's bringing. Find those who support you and give support, and we'll see those who are supported and those who are not. As the design of a part seeking a whole, it really brings in this theme of finding the places where you belong. Where do you belong in your family, in your community, in the totality? So if you have a sense of not belonging, that can be really amplified while this pressure is here. And then all the tribal themes, it's very much about gaining the needed resources. And within that, there's loyalty and betrayal, and jealousy and friendship, and possessiveness and generosity. As the channel of the marriage contract and bargains in general, it can be a really good time for negotiation of contracts. Any places where you're feeling taken advantage of, this pressure could also amplify that. And it may be time then to renegotiate or potentially terminate an agreement if it's really not correct. We may see people out of this pressure of belonging to join communities that are actually not aligned for them, just to try and get that sense of belonging. So just something to watch for there. In the greater collective, trade agreements in general are also going to be highlighted. All right. Well, we've got one short-term channel that's coming in. It's going to come in on April 24th at 3:34 p.m., going until the 27th at 9:18 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in on the 24th at 9:34 p.m., going until the 28th at 3:18 a.m. We have Mercury moving into gate 51, the trait of shock. In the ego center, that heart center again, that generates that willpower. It's connecting with Neptune's position, gate 25, the trait of the spirit of the self, of innocence, and universal love in the G center. That's the center associated with love, identity, and direction in life. You can think of gate 25 as the spirit of the warrior connecting with that heart of the warrior in gate 51. This creates the individual channel of initiation, a design of needing to be first. You may receive a pulse of knowing of what leap into the unknown to take to stretch yourself, to adapt, and land on your feet. This can initiate you into a new sense of self, stretching your own limits. That really can bring you more deeply into yourself. It's part of the centering circuitry that can support you in accepting yourself as you are, which in turn helps you to be more centered within yourself. The pressure of this channel then could have you testing your limits. And that could be very empowering. This is a trait that when challenged with, who wants to go first, is going to step up. Yeah, I'll go. I'll do it. What we most often see, though, in the not self world out of this pressure is being competitive out of the ego, a win at all costs mentality, throwing caution to the wind in a foolish way. Now, with Mercury sitting in that gate 51, we may hear a lot of talk about initiations or the competitiveness that's out there, or what someone should be doing to win over another. All right. We've also got one moon transit this cycle, the moon transits are very short. They're like little tasters of the channel because the moon only activates a gate or a trait for about 10 or 11 hours, give or take. This one's coming in on April 22nd at 9:47 p.m., going until the 23rd at 7:24 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in on the 23rd at 3:47 a.m., going until 1:24 p.m. We have the moon moving into gate 62, the gate of details in the throat center, and it's connecting with its electromagnetic gate 17, the trait of opinions in the ajna center. That's your mental awareness center, all about analyzing, researching, comparing, and so on. That one's being activated by Saturn. Together, they create the channel of acceptance, a design of an organizational being. This is part of the mental logic circuitry that's all about finding those patterns to carry us into the future. If I do this, this, and this, I'm consistently and reliably going to get this result. That's what it's looking for. So there's a real acceptance of logic that's here. This is a channel where the theories, the opinions of Gate 17 go through a process to get all the facts and details in place to substantiate those theories and can then articulate them in a way that can be understood with all the details and facts so that someone can take them and really test it to see if it works in real life. This is only the mental theorizing process. We don't really know whether it works or not. The frequency that this brings is really good for organizing things and people, whatever it might be. So if you're feeling compelled to do some organizing, just make sure you check in with your own strategy and authority to make sure it's how you should be using your energy. But if so, this is going to be very helpful. Often under this pressure, because it's going to the throat, people just blurt out what they want to share uninvited. And all those facts and details, when the other doesn't want to hear them, well, that can be incredibly boring or overwhelming. And then it just gets blocked out, right? It goes unheard, even if it's good information. All right, that brings us to our long-term transits. The long-term transits are created by the outer planets and the nodes of the moon. They're with us for longer periods of time, years in some cases. So your not self mind could start to think that they're part of you, even when it's not something that you have in your own design. And then when that transit moves on, that can be rather confusing to the mind. This cycle, we have Jupiter and Saturn making line changes, but let's start with our nodes as they set the context. They really bring that homogenized perspective and direction that we'll see play out in the world. The nodes continue to bring the 3740 channel of community, that design of a part seeking a whole that we've already talked about. They're sitting in line 2. So for gate 37, the trait of friendship and family, line 2, this line of projection is called responsibility. And in this tribal gate, it's going to be rooted in gaining needed resources. The exaltation says the understanding of the principle of individual responsibility as the foundation for successful cooperation, the possibility of friendship through individual responsibility. So it's really important here not to be in relationships where others are dependent on you. Otherwise, you can end up in the detriment, which is a tendency to point out the responsibility of others. The possibility that friendship will lead to pointing out the responsibility of others. So it's going to bring pressure for people, groups, nations to take responsibility for themselves on one side, or because we tend to see the detriments play out in the not self world, telling others what their responsibility should be. For gate 40, the trait of deliverance and aloneness, line 2 is called resoluteness. The exaltation says the power and authority in deliverance to shed forever the qualities which hampered liberation, the power through aloneness to recognize the importance and the potential disruptive effect of others. Liberation, when we're talking about the ego center, is always about getting time off, getting that leisure time. Willpower is not infinite. It needs to be able to rest. In the detriment, it says the natural peacefulness that in deliverance may sympathize with and attempt to nurture the forces which hampered liberation, the power of loneliness to blind the ego to the possible disruptive effects of others. The ego likes to be stroked and massaged, and it needs that to be able to provide. But without that discernment, you can end up really spreading yourself thin, trying to provide to everyone and not really discerning or parsing out those that are disruptive. And what does that mean? Those that are disruptive are the ones that are pulling on you to use your willpower in ways that really are not aligned for you. All right. Now, line two generally has that antisocial quality as the line of the hermit. At the same time, because here there's going to be everyone kind of trying to pull on everyone else to use their willpower in the way the other wants, there could be a real busyness as well. So putting the 37 and 40 together here in the not self world, we're going to have people trying to will each other to do things that they're saying are the other's responsibility anyways. All right. Well, moving to the outer planets now, Jupiter sitting in gate 53, the trait of beginnings and development in the root center with its pressure to start a new experience. It's a part of a format channel, the channel of maturation that has an impact on everything else in the chart. It starts the cycle in line 3 called practicality. And the third line, trial and error theme, is really a good alignment with the maturation process of gaining experience that this trait is part of. And going through cycles of beginnings, middles, and ends, you are going to go through a trial and error process. With this line, beginning something new is dependent on there being harmonious relationships with the others involved in the experience. Otherwise, there'll be a tendency just to walk out. Finding those harmonious people and environments and situations takes some trial and error here. The harmony, though, is necessary to be able to go through the experience and develop oneself with this line 3 quality. In the detriment, going through trial and error, well, that can end up provoking others in a way that the harmony is lost, and then you'll just want to get out of the experience. In fact, for those that have this in their design, gate 53, line 3, sometimes this detriment actually evolves into a strategy of provoking conflict when they're fed up with something, so they have an excuse to leave and start something new. Jupiter is going to expand this quality of harmony or provoking conflict while we're in this line. Now, on April 23rd at 7:48 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, Jupiter is going to move into line 4 called assuredness. In the exaltation, it says the ability to maintain the strength of one's individuality in complex and often awkward situations that ensures continued security and development. The pressure to maintain one's individuality in confused beginnings. It's always confusion when you start something new. And the fourth line is social. Conflicts come up out of the confusion that you have to work through. And this trait really brings the potential for you to maintain your individuality, even if things do get complex and awkward. There's a self assuredness that you have the capacity to move through the experience. In the detriment, it says the persistent difficulty with embarrassing or awkward situations where normal emotional reactions may prove detrimental. Individual pressure for beginnings that creates awkward and sometimes embarrassing situations. In the detriment, which again is likely what we'll see play out in the collective, there may be a lack of assuredness through those awkward and embarrassing situations that could lead to jumping out of something that was started and into something new. So you don't get to go through the whole process. Here, Jupiter can expand the self assuredness or the lack of it. Saturn sitting in gate 17, the logical trait of opinions in the Ajna Center, and is really attuned to and collects patterns to determine what is best. It's part of the channel of an organizational being. So if you have something that you need to organize, this is a trait that can be very supportive for that. It starts the cycle in line 5 called No Human is an Island. In the exaltation, we can learn over time that there's an interdependency between all things and brings opinions, theories that can express the value of being organized, whether mundane or spiritual. In the detriment, the ego gets in the way, and there's a refusal to see the value of being organized. There's always a tension in these polarities, wanting to be organized, and those who no, don't organize me. I want to choose for myself. So, even with those that agree to the organizational structure, there's always the tension of, is this really the right structure? Remember that this is the mental process here. It hasn't necessarily been tested in real life yet. It brings the pressure to organize at whatever level that is, whether things or people, organizing for something or against something. And Saturn could bring the discipline to this process or constrain it in some way. Or there could be resistance to organizing, and Saturn could bring consequences to that. Towards the end of the cycle, on April 26th at 3:26 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, Saturn's going to move into line 6 called the Bodhisattva. It has a developmental theme that says perfected following, one with, and the same as perfected leading. So I'll go into the details of that one next cycle. We have Uranus sitting in gate 8, the individual trait of contribution and holding together in the throat center. This is the voice of, I know I can contribute or not. And Uranus can bring its unusual or revolutionary nature to this. Uranus can also sometimes be sidetracking. It's sitting in line 6 called communion, with a developmental theme that says the certainty which grows out of harmony. The 6th line will bring inaction, no contribution, unless you can really see that there is a very good chance that it can actually bring mutation. That's the goal of the individual circuitry. Next, if you don't contribute in the right timing, it's not going to catch fire in the tribe or the collective. You have to understand the patterns of the tribe and collective in order to know when the correct timing is to bring that mutative contribution through, right? The individual traits bring the spark. They only catch fires if the tribe or the collective take it up. This trait brings the knowing of when to contribute creatively in the exaltation and uncertainty in timing in the detriment. Now, we do have that gate 17, as we just talked about, in the transit field with its ability to see patterns. So that's actually a really nice complement to support this 6th line in gate 8. Neptune is in gate 25, the individual trait of the spirit of the self, of innocence and universal love. It's in line 6 called ignorance. So we have another 6th line in an individual trait that can see the full individual circuitry and isn't going to do anything unless it knows there's a good chance for it to be mutative. Although the 25th gate is rooted in motiveless action, at the 6th line level, if there's no mutation, it can't see that it's going to be mutative. Who cares if it's motiveless? This is a place where action is to be accepted without motive. It has a developmental theme that says false innocence betrayed by actions. The exaltation says the least mild of a negative position, where inappropriate action is censured, the loss of innocence through inappropriate action. This is where, as a child, you take innocent action and you get into trouble anyways. Right? So you learn out of that, after that happens enough times, to be careful about what you take action on, to the point that you just don't engage in any action at all. Now, the detriment, you don't learn your lessons. It says constant, inappropriate, and destabilizing actions whose very counterproductiveness strips away the facade of innocence. Constant, inappropriate action in times of challenges that can break the spirit. This again tends to lead to withdrawal, which is a healthy place actually for the 6th line. It helps to bring you here back into yourself. Remember, this is in the G center, and that can help you to reconnect with yourself and with that innocence. This is a trait that's very good at looking at others' actions and knowing whether they have a motive or whether that action is out of innocence. It's not so good, though, at seeing that for oneself. And the veiling aspect of Neptune is going to make that even more difficult. Pluto sitting in gate 41, the collective abstract trait of contraction and decrease in the root center. This is the fuel and the pressure to start a new experience. But at this very beginning stage, it's about fantasizing about all the experiences you'd like to have and eventually paring that down to the one you really want. It's sitting in line 4 called correction. That has a developmental theme that says successful adaptation to limitation. Now, the limitation is just that it's only a fuel here. And the fourth line really has built into it this knowing that the potential to fulfill the feeling and to get the experience is by getting its energy to the next step, to that gate 30 on the other side. It's electromagnetic. That's the trait of recognition of feelings and yearning. In the exaltation, it's the energy for the adaptation that will be needed to get the experience eventually. In the detriment, there's the expenditure of energy on maintaining relationships rather than correction. Fourth lines are social. This is a collective trait, but when you invite others who want to have the same experience into it, it means there's going to be compromises. And the way that you would really have liked to have gone through the experience, it's probably not going to happen that way, which could bring some frustration in the end. Pluto's homogenizing pressure is that you find your inner truth by going through a new experience. Your own inner truth is found through whatever position your Pluto is in, whatever gate it is that it's activating. All right, looking overall now, tribal frequencies are really going to dominate here with the sun and the nodes and tribal gates, as well as we do have Mars sitting in gate 21, the trait of the hunter, huntress. This is also the gate of control for the full cycle, and Mercury's in that same gate, that same trait for the first half of the cycle. So the themes of mutual support, relationships, and resources are really going to be highlighted this cycle. Mars in its immature form is hasty, and it may bring here this being over controlling within this context of communities. So, gate 21 is like the president of a business, where the 45 in the throat center on the other end is like the CEO that's outward facing, gathering support. This is like the president that's making sure everything's getting done. But Mars here again can bring potentially micromanaging, over controlling. At the same time, as that frequency moves through all of us, we are going to rebel against being over controlled and micromanaged. So, just something to watch for. This is an ego gate. So, yeah, that big ego could need to control, especially controlling resources. And with Mercury there in the first half of the cycle, there could be a lot of rhetoric around that. That's going to be amplified here. With the sun in the 27, caring and not caring within families and communities are going to be themes, while at the personal level, there's going to be that potential opportunity for you to put your energy into nurturing yourself and perhaps others, and you may really be able to take control over your self-care in a new way with these frequencies present, assuming that it's correct for you according to your strategy and authority. You could get a pulse of insight of what your next step is on your purpose path that could bring you into a new experience and enhance your sense of being centered in yourself, and see what you might contribute to others in service. Watch for trying to force others to comply to your will, but expect to see that play out in the world. Remember that 65% of people usually do not have the willpower center defined in their chart. So they're taking in all this willpower of that channel of community and this gate 21 and amplifying it. On the last day of this cycle, we're going to have the sun, the earth, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, all sitting in the sixth line. So that could be a day where the transitional nature of the sixth line is highlighted, but we also might see almost this kind of pause in taking action with that sixth line tendency towards inaction, right? Unless it can see it can fulfill the circuitry. And here we've got tribal, logic, and individual circuitry all involved. So this is going to be kind of this holding back unless the action can be supportive, mutative, and in service to humanity. So I'll be watching though with that gate 28, our Earth's position in line 6. That line's called Blaze of Glory, and in its detriment can be very self destructive. And our sun's position, gate 27 in line 6, is called wariness. And then the detriment, it can be very suspicious around caring. So just a couple things to watch and observe how they may play out around you. All right. That brings us to the end of the cosmic weather for this cycle. If you want to run your own chart, you can go to jovianarchive.com. If you're new to human design and you just want to understand the basics of the body graph at a high level, what's the black and the red about, the geometric shapes, a bit of background on the human design system, feel free to grab my free Human Design Basics mini course. It's at margotgfraser.com/human design. All right. Well, if it's correct for you, take the time to attune to what's nurturing for you this cycle. You may gain wisdom around how you can care for yourself and others in a greater way and in ways that are very unique to you. Stay present to any knowings that come through as to what's really worth struggling for towards your purpose and knowing that life is of value. If you notice any fear of purposelessness coming up, recognize that it's likely coming from the transit field. Trust your strategy and authority to guide you. Okay, well, have a great cycle. Be kind to one another, and may you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. Until next time, bye for now.